Welcome to Mini Mastery. In this web series, we're going to be working on painting miniatures for tabletop role playing. We're going to be focusing on miniatures that I've selected for my players to represent their characters in our ongoing campaign. Each of my campaigns, any of my players, I do gift with a miniature as a token of my appreciation for them taking the time out of their busy schedules to enjoy tabletop role-playing games with me. So all of the players will be receiving one of the miniatures that we're going to be painting in this web series. Hope you enjoy, hope you follow along. I hope you subscribe and continue to hit that bell for notifications so you can keep up with the progress of the miniatures that my players are going to be receiving for representations of their characters in our ongoing campaign. Let's dive right in. After prepping the mini, we've colorized the sides of its base. I always ask my players what their favorite color is. I try to incorporate that color in the paint, but additionally I also put it on the base so that while they're just in a primered stage on the tabletop, they're easy to discern from one another and everybody can recognize their mini quickly and easily. In preparing this miniature, we're going to start with the lowest details, so the furthest from the outermost surface. In that case, it's going to be skin, and because he's covered with some clothing, some armor, boots, all types of accessories, the lowest point is going to be skin. Because the skin is the furthest away, if we paint that first, then all of the other details that get painted above the skin will be easier to maintain cleaner lines, starting with just a flesh tone. All we're going to do is paint, trying to be careful. However, it's okay if you paint beyond that point, because we will be doing lots of cleanup. And you can see in the neck area he does have ears showing through his hair. So we're contradicting ourselves here in that the ears go over the hair. No ear on this side. Clean the brush and reapply some paint. Now there you can see me wiping off excess paint. And here again the skin tone is not the lowest point because he's holding the handle of the sword. However, by keeping the skin tone the focus, because that was the first paint we started with, we'll actually have consistency in the skin tone, and any colors that we blend will match from his face to his hands, and if there were any other exposed skin points as well. Here you can see he has a bit of armor on the back of his hand, so we'll just try to carefully avoid that. And a little bit of possible skin or glove, you could paint these as gloves on the side. And again, this layer here does not have to be very clean because everything we lay on top of it will make the difference. And then again onto this hand, you can see there's a little bit of exposed hand under armor. And again, you can paint this as gloves. However, I like the fantasy look of just skin tones showing. And because this is for a fantasy RPG, actual armor is a little bit more forgiving than what would be historically accurate. We want to make sure that that has a nice, good, even tone. We're using thin coats. And you can see in the face a little bit of the gray showing through. And that's okay. With those thin coats, we'll do multiple coats to allow good coverage. If we were doing a speed painting, we'd put this on a little bit heavier and then give it its flesh wash. However, because we're doing a little bit more decorative paint style, we're going to allow this to dry and then do another coat. Now that we've had time for that to dry, we're going to put on a second thin coat of that same color. This is just to make sure that we have very good coverage to the face and the hands, anywhere that we have painted that flesh tone. And what we want to do is pull the paint out of the brush. So I've always got the area where I'm painting faced away from me, so that we're pulling away. That really helps lay down the color and pull that paint out of the bristles of the brush. Now the second coat, also thinned down because of our wet palette. Again, does not clog up any of the details, the spaces of the fingers, any of the bits where he's holding on to his weapons, or even details that could possibly be a collar along his neckline. Let's let that dry and come back to it. Now that the base layer is dry, we're going to add in a shadow wash. This we're just going to cover the entirety of the skin shadow that we had previously painted. This is just to tone deepen shadows and begin to add some contrast into that skin tone. By utilizing a shadow wash, we're adding depth and continuing to make that skin more contrast. As that lighter paint settles into some of the deeper crevices and areas, we're adding that depth for that miniature so our eyes can better distinguish the details in the face and hands. We'll continue that process more. For right now, like every layer, we want to let that dry. Now, I've taken our shadow color and darkened it, and I'm going to be applying that darker tone to the lowest points on the mini. Again, this is just a wash, and I am just lightly placing this very dark tone in the lowest recesses where shadows would sit. This again adds further depth to the miniature by making those deepest recesses even darker. Anywhere that this shadow would sit is going to receive a amount of this shadow color, allowing that base tone to stand out even further. Again, we'll give our miniature time to dry. Now that the deepest shadow tones have dried, we will go in and once again go into our mid-tone, which is the Reaper Caucasian flesh. You can see the variance in colors, and what we want to do with a fine brush and very thin paint is go through and redistinguish highlight areas. Because this is our mid-tone, we want to be careful not to erase our shadows and not to delineate the areas of the face and hands that have received shading. Because the colors are close, they will blend as they dry. And just offer a variance of depth to your miniature. Also with the ears and hands. All we're doing is basically covering up areas of lighter skin that were affected by our shadow tones. This again is going to bring a better contrast to the colors on the miniature, allowing them to be seen with the naked eye while under regular table conditions. If you have challenges with a steady hand, there are many tutorials online about how to utilize different painting techniques and tools to steady your hand. You can start to see some of the contrasts really standing out, especially around the eyes, with higher cheekbones receiving more light than the shadowed recesses in the cheeks under the eyebrows, under the nose, and along the mouth line. Again, we're using thinner coats and adding multiple layers to highlight those areas, allowing each to dry fully before applying the next coat. Picking out features on the face, we can really allow a perception of highs and lows on this figure. And with the hands as well. Because this is our mid-tone, it does not contradict our lighting choices. And with a steady hand and multiple thin layers, we're able to build on the previous layers and allow those low lights more depth. Because we're using thinner layers, those midtones are going to dry faster. Our next tone is called Stark Naked, and it's lighter than skin tone, but we're going to start with a thin layer mixed with our midtone of Caucasian to start giving highlights. One thing we want to do is make sure we don't have too much on our brush, leaving some of the midtones as we start applying these early stage highlights. These will also blend in with the midtones. However, be thin and light enough to dry quickly. And we want to really start focusing on areas where the light, the perceived light, which in this case we've decided is going to be from above, will start hitting. But because this is a lighter skin tone, we will start pressing in some of the details, such as knuckles. Again, many of these details are really reserved for display miniatures. But I feel that providing this level, even on tabletop miniatures, really differentiates your PC's miniatures from villain miniatures. Utilizing multiple layers, thinner paints allows allows you to achieve even better results in making those highlights stand out. Our next highlight is raw, stark, naked. We are focusing on the absolute highest points. To continue to drive the perception of depth. And as before, continuing that on anywhere that the highest points are going to be on the miniature. Here we'll start to lay in some of the details of the knuckles. Again, just highlighting very softly where those knuckles bend. Now you may call out that those are not highlights that are in the light, and you would be right. However, because the skin stretches over the knuckles, they get a lighter color. Now with the gentlest of touch, we're going to lay in the eyes. I don't know how well this is going to show up. I do have to apologize because I'm not directly over the miniature to try to keep it in the camera frame. But I try to keep the eyes condensed with this black and even. You can see one eye is larger than the other. Some of that is in the sculpt. But to even that out, once this dries out, we can go back in with our shades now that we have them all mixed and prepared, and realign those sizes. Just doing some general cleanup here, making sure that the size of the eyes are consistent, and touching up any skin tones around those eyes, just so that we've got good uniformity. So here we are just continuing to touch up any highlights around the eyes. We're getting ready to add in an off-white to the black sockets that we've set. Just making sure our highlights are nice and clean, even and neat. And then starting to lay in the off-white. So for this color I use linen white, which is a warm off-white. And I just lay that over top of the black sockets. you'll see I utilize 2 coats just so it covers the black really well. And I often turn the mini upside down just for uniformity between the 2 eyes. Now we're going to be laying in the pupils once that linen white has dried. This is just adding the shape of the pupils in over top of the white. Because these are just for tabletop, I'm not adding any colors. I just went right back to the black. And again, turning it over so that I can make sure both of them match in size and in location. So they're both looking the same way, I'm not cross-eyed. And giving it just a once over to make sure everything looks good. So that covers us as far as the skin level on this mini. Next week we're going to be looking at cloth underneath the armor, anywhere that we've got exposed cloth or clothing, anything that'll sit under the armor. It could be collars, boots, anywhere that fabric may be showing from sleeves or legs. Maybe this collar, and we'll be working on that coloring next. Skin tones are done, pretty happy with it. You can see the details from above, and I think for our first start, here are the rest of the minis who are in the early prep stage. We'll be going through and painting all of these just bit by bit, one by one, until the entire adventuring party for this campaign is completely painted. And we'll be posting a new video each week. We hope you join and continue to watch. Enjoy. Thanks for watching our video. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we'd love to have you subscribe. Feel free to hit that button if you care to get notifications for when we post new content. Leave your comments below and help us answer the question of where will your adventures take you. Enjoy.